As you walked away from me, looking over your shoulder, you said, "I'll see you in the morning. It's just one night." You did this on purpose to humiliate me in front of your friends. You chose him over me on the day you organized for us. And your friends just sat and smiled. We were in our first meeting with the advisor, and he had just asked me how I felt. The advisor warned me, he said, "I'll play devil's advocate." He looked at Linda. "Did you want to humiliate your husband?" I thought it was a strange question, but I really haven't been able to think straight since that night. She looked at me, not at him. "No, I didn't mean to humiliate you. It was just so you knew I'd be back in the morning." It didn't look like that from where I sat, with my wife walking away arm in arm with another man. Look at it from my point of view for once. She looked down at her lap, then looked up at me. I tried, and I'm so ashamed of what I did. Since the incident, we have hardly spoken. I only spoke to her about the most necessary things. Giving her the cold shoulder would be too soft. I was in deep silence. But I tried to talk to her when the children were around, trying to give them some kind of normality, and I was terribly unsuccessful. I completely ignored her whenever I could. We slept in the same bed because there were no others. If she touched me at night, I got up and left. If I had a choice, she would sleep in another bed, having sex with him. She left our marital bed. "My name is Dr. John Campbell. You can call me John, Dr. John, whatever you like." Linda said, "I'll call you John." I replied, "Dr. Campbell." He looked at me and said, "I'll let Linda begin. Jim, do you mind?" "It's Mr. Northover. I don't care." I took out my phone and put it on the table. I turned on the recording. "I hope this isn't being recorded," said Dr. Dear Campbell. "It's being recorded, and if you object, I'll leave now," I said, standing up. Linda winced. "Please let him. He has the right to after what I did." The doctor nodded his head, and I sat back down. I talked to my lawyer for a long time, and she convinced me that this is what I need to do, at least for the sake of the children. I don't know where Linda found this consultant, and I don't care. It won't change the final outcome, but it may help me cope with the kids. I was worried about the children. If I couldn't cope, it would affect them. I knew I needed help, and I agreed to it. I had a plan. I will stay married until Sean turns 18 or he leaves home first. I'm not impressed yet, but I didn't intend to be. I even refused to shake hands when we arrived. She started first, begging me that she would fix everything. It was just one night. She apologized for what happened. It was wrong. She admitted that she was weak, selfish, and thought she could fix everything. "No, you didn't realize how far this would go," I thought to myself. When Linda finished, she cried, and there was nothing there that I hadn't heard before. Dr. Giz Campbell looked at me. "Now it's your turn, Jim. Tell me how you feel, and how do you think you can overcome this?" Overcome. Now he showed his true colors. It was my fault that she changed. I looked at him and said, "I think you mean Mr. Tish Northover." "Sorry, Jim, Mr. Northover." I looked at her. "Okay, in no particular order, let's go." That was probably the longest sentence I'd spoken to her since the Sunday she came home a little over a week ago. It might help if you came back at a reasonable time, like 7's or 8's in the morning, and by taxi or Uber, without driving up in his flashy sports car at almost 1 a.m. and not getting out of the car while he held the door for you. Then I walked along the path in that red dress that you bought for me. He wanted to bury it on my nose. I was with your woman, and there's nothing you can do about it because I'm a star, and I have a big, luxurious, expensive car. So not only did you betray me in front of all your friends, notice I told your friends you let him humiliate me in front of the whole street, and you came back at the busiest time of the day only to rub it in my face even more. The ice cream man's car was there with a line of our neighbors. He held the door for you, and you let him help you out. At least he kissed you on the cheek you offered, and you walked past the line at the ice cream man's car with a smug smile on your face, and everyone took out their cameras, filming my humiliation as you got out of that guy's car. All this instantly ended up on the internet. No, no, it wasn't like that. I didn't even notice the ice cream man's car. I was thinking about you, Linda said through tears. Shut up, you already said it. Now it's my turn, I said. I thought he was going to scold me for being rude to Linda, but he didn't. He raised his hand and softly said to Linda, "He needs time. You will have a chance to answer him." You said, "See you in the morning," but it wasn't in the morning, was it in the afternoon? But honey, I love you, Linda whispered. I ignored it. How can I trust you? When you left, you said, "It's just one night. I love you." How can you say I love you and then leave with another man? I didn't even know if you would come back to me at all. And now I wish you wouldn't come back. When you left, I got up to follow you, but Dee was standing in front of me. "It's just one night. She'll be back in the morning," she told me. I tried to push past her. Then I felt someone grab me. I had to use my heels and elbows to free myself. I pushed past Dee. I got to the middle of the dance floor, and suddenly two of his friends were in front of me with their hands up to stop me. "Just let me go. It's just for one night. And we will stop you," they told me. I tried to push past them, but they pushed me back. I looked at the bouncers. They looked sad. They looked at me and just shook their heads. Apparently, this wasn't the first time he'd done this. I called you, but the phone went straight through to the answering machine. You must have turned it off. How would I contact you if something happened to the children? So you abandoned the children too. I tried to fight for you, but everyone got in my way. Now I was in full swing and everything came out. And I can't touch that bastard. Because if anything happens to him, the first person the police will call will be me, and when they find out it's not me, they'll start looking for the next husband of the wife he slept with, and so on. When they don't find anyone, they will come back and start all over again. So I have to make sure that I have an alibi for every minute of every day. I have cameras all over the house so you can see where I am. At any time, I even have an action camera with a tracker in the car watching me when I drive. I know there are video cameras at work that record people coming and going, so you see, I'm at risk 24/7 365, and I have to defend myself so that you don't accuse me of abusing you or the children. She looked horrified. "Jim, darling, I would never do that. And I never thought you'd run off and have sex with another man, but you did." I saw that it hurt her. "If he had just given you a ride home, it would have been better. No, a big flashy car that was loud, attracting everyone's attention, and you just let him do it. I can't go out into town without hearing someone shout cuckold at me. If I go out, I have to go out at night so no one recognizes me. I have to run at night. I can't even go to the pub. I got kicked out, probably because I threw my beer on John Simpson for calling me a cuckold. And Fred Smith got a formal warning at work because of something he left on my desk. Then when I went to sort it out with him, he pushed me away, so I got a formal warning and was suspended from work for 2 weeks without payment for hitting him. I'm lucky that's all they did to me, probably because I'm the best designer they have, but I lost the promotion that I earned. You know, we were celebrating that promotion when you did it." Dr. Capos Campbell opened his mouth to say something, and I pointed my finger at him. "You, Mr. Tar, consultant, said it was my turn to speak, so shut your mouth." He closed his mouth and motioned for me to continue. "How will you fix this? How will I recover from that night? I might as well move to another county, or I might just disappear and leave you to fend for yourself and pay the mortgage. If I get divorced, I'll lose half of what I'm worth. That I worked and studied, but you are the one who cheated. Currently, I feel like I want to kill you and your boyfriend and spend the next 25 years in prison. I could get out in 15 years for good behavior. Pretty much the only thing stopping me. It's that I don't want my kids to have a killer father. And while we're on the topic of kids, I got a call from the school, and it turns out Sean got into a fight. Someone called you a name, and Sean hit him. I begged the school not to expel him. Your night of passion ruined my whole life. I hope it was worth it. Because now that you've shown that you're a cheating hot wife, all the Toms, Dicks, and Harrys will be after you. And as far as I'm concerned, they can have yours. Infected body. So this night of passion has ruined my life, your life, and the children's life, so you have to live with it. So after your night of passion, how the hell are you going to work it all out? Or am I going to have to sit and wait for you to run off with the next celebrity who attracts your attention? Linda just sat there shaking her head, saying, I won't, it hurts too much, I promise I won't. Then I got really angry. You also promised to stay faithful. Look how that worked. Her body shook with sobs. The consultant turned to me and said, if you don't try, Mr. Northover, you'll never know. I looked at him. Why should I take the risk? The only reason I'm sitting here is because of the children. I actually felt better after my performance. I took a deep breath and seemed to calm down a little. This was the first time I let it all out in one go. It was Linda's turn. Sorry, honey, I didn't really see the line at the ice cream machine, honestly. I was coming home to you, so I smiled. It was a terrible night. He made me come, but it wasn't as good as with you. He just rolled over and fell asleep. I'm so ashamed. I realized that I made a huge mistake, but you love me, you would forgive me, and I would fix everything. I thought about the things I could do for you to prove it, and this brought back happy memories, so I smiled, and I took the tests. The results should come this week. The doctor said, well, that gives us a lot to think about, until next week. When we got up to leave, I looked at the doctor and said, and even your damn receptionist I know. She turned his signed photo so I could see it. I don't think I'll come back here if they treat me like that. That was it. The session ended. I headed for the door. The doctor beat me to it. He held the door for Linda, and she left. He looked at me and said, it was unprofessional what she did. Let me get this straight. Please be patient. He went to the back of the office and turned on the monitor, then called me. For security, we record everything that happens in these offices. I saw him fast-forwarding the video in the outer office. He saw how the receptionist turned the picture, although it was impossible to discern what was depicted on it. He walked to the office door, and I followed him. He walked over to her desk and turned the picture, seeing who was in it. He turned to her. What temporary work agency are you from? Mercedes, why? Because if you are a standard receptionist whom they send, I will no longer work with them. Now leave. She collected her things, including the photo, and left. The doctor turned to me and said, I'm sorry about this, and it shows me some of the depth of the problems you are facing. By the way, if the police ask me about your incident with Darren Jones, I will have to tell them that I have a medical secret. This means that I know something, but I will not say anything differently. He extended his hand. This time I shook it. We arrived separately as Linda came from work, and I came from home since I was still suspended. I went to another part of the city and sat on the river bank, where no one would recognize me or call me a cuckold. I recalled the events that led to this. I came home from work on a Wednesday 2 weeks ago, and Linda said to me with a big smile on her face, honey, to celebrate your promotion, I booked us a room at Red Heart, one of those with a 4-post bed, I'm sure you know. What can we do on it? And there will be a little dancing. We can have an evening. It sounded tempting to me. It was something I could be happy about. We arrived at the hotel, and there was little time before the dinner she had booked. She went into the shower first. There wasn't enough room for both of us. Otherwise, we would have saved water, you know. I saw how she laid out the laundry. It looked good. It doesn't take me long to shower and shave. I came out of the bathroom, and she was getting dressed. Her hair was beautifully styled on top. She was wearing long garters, almost like a corset. This is one of my favorites. There was a beautiful red dress lying on the bed. She took the bra. I walked over and took it from her, saying, since tonight is just for us, maybe we'll give the girls freedom. She just smiled, took the bra from me, and put it on. I frowned, and she stuck her tongue out at me. I helped her put on her dress. While I buttoned up Lightning, I looked at her, and she looked gorgeous, and I told her, honey, you are the most beautiful woman in this city, and I love you very much. I extended my hand, and she took it, and we went to a restaurant. We were like two young lovers. I fed her dessert. I couldn't be happier. We finished dinner and headed to the ballroom. When we entered, I saw a small table in the corner. It was quite dark, so I headed there. Linda pulled me to the opposite side of the room. I sighed as 6 of our friends were sitting there, mostly her friends. I sometimes play golf with Dave and Ed. Stephen is not a golfer. He is not very good at it. He is a social member of the golf club and is on the entertainment committee. They were with their wives Dee, Jane, and Denise. I didn't really like Itze's, she talked too much, but she and Linda had been friends since school. I pulled her hand and turned her towards me. Was this supposed to be a night just for us? When Dee found out what I had planned, they started inviting themselves. I couldn't stop them. But we won't be here long, I promise. That's why you don't hotels for the girls to be free. You knew they would be here. Okay, 1 hour and we're off to celebrate properly, just you and me. You're right, she said, smiling at me. I tried to get along with my friends. We danced a little, mostly slow dancing. Dee kept asking me to dance, but I refused. All my dances were for Linda, I told her that. When the hour had passed, I reached out to Linda and said, "Honey, we have places we need to go." She stood up and took my hand, and we said goodbye with many knowing winks and nudges as we turned to leave. He stood there. "The most beautiful woman in the whole city is leaving so soon. May I ask you for one dance?" I vaguely recognized him. Then it dawned on me that he was a local championship footballer. She looked at me and said, "Just one dance, honey, please. It's Marcus Vale." She did so much for me. "Okay, just one dance, no more. You and I have plans." I sat back down. Stephen asked me if I wanted a beer. I thanked him and said no, it would only be one dance. Dee sat down next to me. "Come on, don't be moody. It's just one dance, and it's Marcus Whale anyway." "I don't care. He didn't even bother asking me. He went straight to her, ignoring me. He's an arrogant jerk." Then Dave stepped in. "But he's a brilliant footballer, and we have a chance to get into the Premier League next year if he continues to do as well as he does with his left foot." "I don't care. It's our night." It went unnoticed that while we were arguing, there was another dance going on, and I couldn't see them on the dance floor. This dance was not as fast as the others. I got up from the table and walked along the edge, and there they were in the corner. I headed towards them when suddenly 2 guys, whom I perceived as his friends, appeared in front of me, and I could not pass by. One of them grabbed me by the jacket and told me, "I see you're upset, buddy. Go sit at your table, and we'll get you some food. Her to you." There were 2 of them and 1 of me, so I walked back to the table. I saw one of them heading towards Linda and Marcus. I returned to the table and heard ridicule from the guys, and Dee winked at me with her devious smile. There was another dance, and they didn't come back, so this time I stood up. I wasn't going to stop. As I stood up, they appeared in front of me. Her hand was wrapped around his waist, his hand resting on her waist. She looked at me and said, "Just one night, honey, and then I'll come back to you for the rest of my life." She turned and walked away with him. As she walked away, she looked over her shoulder and said, "I'll see you in the morning. It's just one night. I love you." I was about to follow her when Dee stood in front of me and hands grabbed me from behind. "It's one night. Just give her one night and she'll come back. She'll fix everything. This is Marcus Vale." With the help of my elbows and heels, I was able to free myself. I made my way through the crowd to meet his 2 friends again. One put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Leave it. She'll be back tomorrow. Nothing bad will happen, I promise." I didn't know this idiot, so I didn't believe him. I remember something about bouncers, and all I saw were the tail lights of the car moving away. I took out my phone to track her, but her phone was turned off, so there was nothing. There were no tears, only anger, and there would be pain, not just mine. I returned to the table. They all more were there. It was obvious there was an argument going on, with Stephen and Denise shouting at the other 4. When I came up, they could see how angry I was. I told Dee, "Next time you see her, tell her it's a scam." I looked at Edward and Dave and told them, "Next time I see you, you better turn around and run away." Because I'm going to take the biggest stick I can find, and I'm going to beat you to a pulp, and I suggest you stay away from dark places from now on. I turned and walked away from Linda's friends. I went up to our room, collected my things, and went home. I left her things there. Now I was crying. Our two children, Sean and Carrie, were her parents, so the house was empty. They were supposed to return on Sunday evening. I spent night pacing back and forth in our living room, wondering what the hell I did wrong. I went to our home gym in the garage and started pedaling hard on the exercise bike. It didn't help, so I switched to whiskey, but after a couple sips I realized that wasn't the answer either. And then I saw the sun rise. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. I went outside and looked at him, all more thinking about what I did wrong. I think I finally fell asleep in one of the lawn chairs. I woke up to the sound of children playing. I went into the house and made coffee, wondering what time the cheater would return in the morning, and I waited. The sound of the ice cream machine drew me to the front of the house. It was nice to see happy people. I heard the car before I saw it. It was already past 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's the same as "see you in the morning." I saw them pull up, and so did everyone in line for ice cream. He came out and opened the door for her, offering his hand. She needed help getting out of the car in that dress. It was so low. He kissed her cheek, looked towards the house, and grinned. She walked towards the house with a smile, passing the line at the ice cream machine. Could it be worse? She walked up to the house and didn't have the keys, so she knocked on the front door. I didn't open it. I was just sitting there waiting, and I heard the back door open, and she walked into the living room. She came up to me and said, "I'm sorry, honey, it was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that." If it was a mistake, why didn't you come home before midnight? I'm not sure I believe you. You probably wanted to sleep with your boyfriend again. No, I didn't want, I'm ashamed. I didn't want him to bring me at all, but I didn't have money. Everyone was at the hotel. I needed to come to my senses after what I did, and he refused until noon. Your money is everything more in the hotel, along with all your things, even good ones. If you want to pick them up, I suggest you go and get them. I stood up and won't change clothes to go for a run. Maybe endorphins help. Alcohol at night did not help. As I walked down the stairs, she told me that the hotel had kept her things. Then it started. As soon as I walked out the front door, I heard the first scream that would haunt me for days. "Hey, cuckold, how was your night?" I looked around, but I couldn't figure out where it was coming from, and there were a lot of people there who could have shouted it. After that, I stayed at home most of the time during the day. I would get up very early in the morning to run or work out in our home gym. I used to go swimming once a week, but now I wasn't going to do it. I did some digging on the internet about Mr. While I softened a little towards Linda, even started preparing food for her. I still didn't talk to her unless I had to. The following week, we had another meeting with the consultant. Here, Linda pointed out that although we sleep in the same bed so the children won't notice, I don't let her touch me. I started wearing pajamas, which I had never done before. If she touched me, I would go downstairs and sleep on the couch, and then get up early in the morning and go for a run. Children are not stupid, and they notice that something is wrong because you don't talk to me, you ignore me, you talk to them, play with them. You have nothing in common with me, and they noticed it. They asked why you don't kiss me like you used to and don't talk to me. I just looked at her. What do you expect? You gave your love to another man. That means you don't love me, which means I don't love you. I'm only here for the children. I was angry, but the problem is that I still more loved her more, but wasn't sure I could forgive her for what she did. Do it once, she can do it again. And how can I trust you? You ran away from me once. How do I know you won't do it to the next movie or pop star who happens to walk in? If I forgive you, it'll practically give you carte blanche to do it again. At this point, the consultant turned to me and said, "If you don't try, Mr. Petit Northover, you'll never know." I looked at him. Why would I risk it? What's to stop her from doing it again and me having to go through all this pain again? The only reason I'm here is because of Sean and Carrie. He looked at her and said, "Linda, What do you have to say about this? I'm sorry, Jim. I'm really sorry. She was crying now. She lowered her eyes to her knees and continued. The sex was good. He did the job. He's experienced, but it was just sex. It was empty, it was superficial, it was meaningless, there was no passion. He just rolled over and went to sleep, and I lay there. Then I realized what I did. Lying there, I vowed to myself to fix everything, and I would never do it again. I opened my mouth to say something, but the consultant raised his hand. Please, Jim, Mr. Northover, let her finish. It was almost as if he was reading my thoughts. Linda stood up and walked over to me on her knees and took my hands. I know I said it before at our wedding, and I meant it then, but now I mean it more. Help me, I don't know how to fix this. Lying there, I thought that you would forgive me because you love me. We have forgiven each other things in the past. When I dented my car, when you broke my favorite vase. But I didn't realize the amount of pain and suffering I caused you until you spoke up last week. I couldn't imagine how much pain I caused you. I can't take it back. I can't undo what I did. I can't undo the way I left you. And I can't take away the humiliation you've been feeling these last couple of weeks. But I can make things right. Please help me. I need your help. She was now crying loudly, and I was seething. She had done a lot of things, and now she was begging me for help. I helped her get up and took her back to her chair. She sat down. I went and sat in my chair, looked at her and said, "No." She cried even harder, and I sat there, full of anger. I was on the edge. Then a shadow appeared on my shoulder. I looked up. It was the receptionist. She was holding a mug in her hands. It's tea. It's strong and very hot. There was sadness in her eyes as she looked at me. She gave me a faint smile, and for some reason I felt like she was on my side. I took the mug in my hands. She was right. The tea was very hot. I squeezed the mug. The pain was almost pleasant. I started to calm down. I knew Linda had met with Dr. Campbell this week, and it sounded like a prepared statement. But sitting there, clutching my mug and looking after the crying face, the look at Dr. Campbell who didn't look happy, I had a feeling she might be sincere. After a few minutes, we continued talking about our feelings and how we were getting along. I said we are approaching a new normal, but I didn't say what it was. John looked at his watch and quickly changed the subject. Jim, let's talk about Marcus Vale. What do you think he gets out of this? A flash of anger flashed across my face as he used my name. I think he understood it. Linda lowered her eyes again. I spent time online researching this idiot, and it came in handy. I thought about it a bit, so I had an answer. I think he likes to seduce other men in front of them. Knowing that he has the support of his teammates makes him feel safe. It's not just about sex with a beautiful woman. So you think he's done this before? Have you heard any rumors? The internet is full of everything, rumors and hints. I'm not sure what to believe, but now that I've seen him in action, I think some of the rumors are true. Tell me the rumors who you think he seduced. I don't always believe rumors, but sometimes there is no fire without smoke. I heard that one was the wife of the deputy police commissioner, one of our local parliamentarians, and several others. They even talked about the mayor's wife. I believe, after he left for resignation, he divorced his wife. So you would say these are the people in power? Yes, probably. So if they used their power to overthrow him, it could be considered an abuse of power, don't you agree? I see where you're going with this. Not only did he want to take their wives, but he also wanted to do it in front of them, making a mockery of their power. So why do you think he chose Linda? She's a beautiful woman, but I don't want to be rude. You're Mr. Average. You have no power. I have no idea. I looked at Dr. Campbell. I'm sure he had some ideas. But I think you should share this. He smiled. I think he's tired of winning the wives of powerful but physically weak men. You're a fit man, you're not a professional athlete, but you keep yourself in shape, and it shows. You are a little smaller than him. He wanted to win the wife of someone physically strong. Linda was there, and as you said, she looked beautiful. You fit his target. and he was absolutely safe because he had a team of companions. Now everything became clear, and I began to feel better about Dr. Campbell. He turned out to be not so bad. After the session, Dr. Campbell asked me to stay. Jim, Mr. Northover, I know you're angry, and I can see why, but I have a few suggestions that might help you. He raised his hand when I opened my mouth. Just let me finish, please. I have an attorney friend who I think can talk to your company on your behalf about losing your promotion for what was essentially self-defense, and HR approving Fred Smith's actions could leave them open to legal action. And I totally agree that if anything happens to Marcus, you will be the prime suspect and will need to maintain an alibi 24/7, 365. I have a cop friend who wanted to. I would like to meet with you or advise you on how to do this. Is this normal? I just nodded my head. This was not the help I expected. I expected him to tell me to just suck it up and interact more with Linda. I probably should have changed my mind about this man even more. Dr. Campbell, I would appreciate it. Do you have my address and phone number? I tried not to speak in complete anger and softened the tone of my voice. I think I succeeded because he smiled at me. Please, Jim, think about what Linda said. She knows how wrong she was, and she really needs your help. He held out his hand to me. I shook it. He looked at me and said, I think this will end soon, Mr. Northover. Hang in there. The insults will subside over time and most people will forget about it, but let's not make light of it. It's always up in the air. Someday in the future it will come up, and when you least expect it, I want to help you prepare for that moment. He was right. People stopped shouting cuckold at me, but the sidelong glances remained. I looked at him. Jim. He smiled again. As I was leaving, I looked at his new receptionist. I hope it was better than the previous one. I almost had to look twice. She looked familiar. No matter, I had other problems on my mind. When I returned home, there was a package with a mobile phone on it, with only my name on it, no address. I opened the package and there was a letter. Call the first number. I turned on the phone. There were only 4 numbers in the address book, with the letters A, B, C, and D. I called the number and they picked it up right away. Hi, Jim. This will be a short call to let you know you are not alone. May I call you later for a longer conversation? My name is Albert and your other friends are Bertram, Cuthbert, and Dilbert. If you have any questions, call one of us. Before I could say anything, he hung up. The call never came, but I was intrigued. 2 days later, I was called to work. I was suspended without pay after the Fred Smith incident. I was told that I had a meeting with management at 1:00 p.m. I came to work, knocked on the door, and burst into my manager's office without an invitation. If I was going to get fired, let's get it over with quickly. My manager, the company lawyer, and the head of the HR department were there. It was serious. And a middle-aged man in an elegant suit, whom I had never seen before. The HR director began, Jim, it has been pointed out to us that our approach to defending you against Mr. C. Smith could expose the company to legal action, and denying you a promotion could be perceived as retaliation against you and supporting a criminal. We have also had complaints from some of your colleagues about your appeal since you defended yourself. Therefore, we would like to reinstate your promotion, but the warning should remain, but it will be downgraded to informal. I must tell you that the company lawyer believes this case is on the verge of losing. But your friend, Mr. Jackson, indicated that it won't pass muster with the Daily Mail. What do you think of that? Oh, you'll be paid for the time you were on holiday, and Mr. Smith was suspended without pay for another 2 weeks. I didn't know who Mr. Jackson was, but I liked him, and until that moment he hadn't even said a word. I accepted their offer. Mr. Jackson and I left the office. We didn't speak until we were out of the building. He extended his hand to me and said, John Campbell said you could use a little help to restore order. I'm glad I could help, and by the way, the whole office has to go through mandatory training again, and they'll be sacked if anything happens. Will something like this happen again? Do you have a phone? I nodded. Okay, if you have any problems, call any number. We shook hands and he left. I was amazed, but with this phone I didn't feel alone. I returned home amazed. I needed to get my work clothes ready for the morning. I hadn't been in the house for half an hour when the house bell rang. Since I had not opened the front door since the incident without a cricket bat handy, I peeked through the window next to the door. There was a guy standing there in a work uniform, holding a business card that said Wakefield Securities. I opened the door with a chain and asked what he wanted. A cop friend of mine said you needed help with security, some sort of 24/7 alibi. My friend couldn't come, but he sent me to help you, give you advice. Dr. Campbell asked him to come in, but he couldn't. That's why he sent me. I let him in and showed him the CCTV system I had installed. He said that I did a good job, but I went too far. There is no need to put a camera in the toilet and bathroom, because the cameras in the kitchen and bedroom already record everyone who enters or leaves, and there is no other way. I pointed out to him that I wanted to see what she did when she was there alone, but that's what I was worried about. I didn't want to tell him that she could be self-blaming and blaming me for it. He seemed to understand and muttered under his breath. He suggested several changes to the cameras for better resolution. He also offered cloud storage to back up my hard drives. He gave me the contacts of a site that currently offers great rates. He suggested replacing some of the cameras in the bathroom and toilet with listening devices and using cameras from there in other places. Although it was a good offer, I refused, saying that audio recordings would not be able to capture someone texting. He still installed 2 better outdoor cameras. I returned to work and things at home were approaching a new normal. For the rest of the week, people gave me a wide berth. I made an effort to dispel this by being a little more alive, excited to be back at work. By Friday, everything had calmed down. I tried to talk to Linda more at home, but it was still difficult. I spent a lot of time in my home gym hitting a punching bag to release some of my pent-up anger. Betrayal by those you love can do that. The local newspaper, the Journal, reported criminal damage to Mr. David Brown's car. He was vandalized in the golf club parking lot. CCTV footage shows a man in dark clothing and a hood damaging the vehicle before running off into the darkness. All this took less than 45 seconds. People took longer to react. Oh, and it was mentioned that the golf club was ruined. The criminal was quite dexterous and fit. The police investigated, but had no leads yet. The golf club has beefed up security. They even hired a security guard to patrol the parking lot, and they increased the lighting. There were plans to extend CCTV coverage to corners. As a member of the golf club, I'm sure rumors of the altercation at Red Heart had reached the police, or Dave might have pointed them at me. I was expecting a visit. They were just doing their job. 2 uniformed policemen arrived. They were polite, so I invited them in. They asked where I was the night of the incident. I told them that I was probably at home, but I couldn't remember exactly what I did last week. They asked if I had any conflict with Mr. Barnaby Brown. I guess they heard. I admitted that we had a conflict and we are no longer friends. I also pointed out that they would have to prove my guilt rather than me having to prove my innocence. At that moment, Linda came into the room, drying her hands with a towel. She looked at the 2 police officers and said, "He's been with me every night for the past week." She looked at me, smiled, and left. I tried to be normal with Linda after that and talked to her more for the sake of the children. But it was damn hard, and I kept having angry outbursts about what she did and having to leave the room. Linda came home from work on Friday. She was furious. She came up to me. "I was pulled over by the police. My car insurance expired. Why didn't you renew it?" "Why did I have to do that? Why would I do anything for you after what you did to me? Get used to it," I snapped at her. "And you'll have to pay the fine yourself." They let me off with a warning if I renewed my insurance as soon as I got home. I just snorted and walked away. The next visit to the consultant was with varying degrees of success. He asked how we were getting along and how we were feeling. I said I try, but I have angry outbursts. I mentioned that we had guests who helped me and I returned to work, which made life easier not only financially but also mentally. Keeping busy was helpful. I didn't tell him about my plan to leave her once Sean turned 18 or when he left home first. Linda admitted that she saw my efforts. But then she started talking about how I didn't renew her car insurance, and she was pulled over but let go. She looked at me angrily. I leaned forward and, looking at Dr. B, John said she was probably only released because she is a friend of the local football star. I had other thoughts running through my head about her being an easy target or about her being a hot wife, but I decided to keep them to myself for now. But I saw how she reacted. It didn't even cross her mind. I didn't stop. The cops, probably his fans, hope he will lead the team to the Premier League next year. Young people adore him. The older generation is not so kind to him. It was time to tell a few more home truths. I looked at her. We were supposed to have lunch with your parents last Sunday, but when I didn't go, what did you tell them? She looked down at her knee. We just had a fight. I didn't say anything else because the kids were nearby. She fell silent after that. I don't think that was the whole truth. Dr. John looked at her and said, "We can talk about this later." I knew she was seeing him separately to get help. Neither our parents nor hers were familiar with computers, so social networks were alien to them, fortunately. The session seemed to naturally come to an end, and we prepared to leave. As we approached the door, Dr. T. John said to me, "Jim, please don't do anything stupid again. There are things we can't protect you from." I muttered something in response, not sure if he knew the truth or just put two and two together to make four. That night, after the kids went to bed, I said to her, "So you told your parents that we were having a little conflict. Did you tell them what the conflict was about?" "No, I told them we disagreed on something, but I didn't tell them what it was." "Well, I'm sure they took your side, didn't they?" She just nodded. "So you told them that we had a little conflict, but you didn't tell them what the conflict was. Why not? Are you ashamed?" "Yes," she screamed at me. "But don't be too ashamed to let me take the blame. You told them I didn't understand your point. No surprise." With that, she stood up, grabbed her purse and car keys, and left the house. I heard her drive away in the car. An hour later, she returned in tears. "I just told Mom and Dad the whole story. I don't think they'll talk to me, and I don't think Dad is happy with you." I felt sorry for her, and I softened, went up to her, and hugged her. This was the first touch since that night. She cried into my chest. But when she tried to hug me back, I stopped her. She went to sleep. I went for a run. I wasn't going to take the blame. I took the phone. It was only a 20-minute run to her parents' house. I called them and told them I was going to see them. I didn't give them a choice. I'm not sure if they were happy to see me when I arrived. It was obvious that her father was not happy with me. I loved them both, but I wasn't going to take the blame for it. Her mother brought tea, and I played a recording of my visit to the consultant. As she played, I saw her father's face change. I didn't get a chance to protect her. People were constantly disturbing me. Her father offered to take me home, and I agreed. It was some kind of irritation on both sides, and it probably wouldn't be wise to run after 2 cups of tea and a large slice of fruit cake. It wasn't far, and we didn't talk on the road. When we arrived, he got out of the car and hugged me. "Sorry, son, if you need anything, let me know." I think he had tears in his eyes when he left. After Linda's last solo meeting with Dr. John, she seemed very withdrawn, as if she was thinking about something. Saturday arrived, and I was doing my usual weekend chores around the house. I spent some time playing catch with the kids and some time in the home gym. I was thinking about going out for a beer later. The few pubs on the other side of town probably wouldn't recognize me. And to be honest, the insults died down, but occasionally you could see mocking smiles when someone recognized me. Linda said she was going to take the children to my parents. She said she would bring them back later that day. I talked to my parents. They knew what was going on. They were on my side, but they loved Linda and would do anything they could to help. But they mostly stayed away, understanding that this was something we needed to figure out ourselves. They, like Linda's parents, offered to take the kids any time we needed time together. Personally, I didn't see the need for this. It was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon when I heard an ice cream machine down the street. This sound no longer made me happy. Then I received a text message from Linda. Please look at the ice cream machine. I instantly responded, no. What was she trying to do? This time Linda called. I figured one way to find out what she was up to was to answer, so I picked up the phone. What? Please do this for me. I'm begging you. Well, now she intrigues me. Fine. I certainly wasn't going to stand by the window and watch another performance of hers, but I could watch her from the camera pointed at the front of the house. The ice cream man arrived, and soon there was a line. Then the front door of the van opened, and someone got out. He was wearing a sack. He dropped to his hands and knees and began to crawl towards the house. He had a sign hanging around his neck on a cord. I zoomed in, and it was Linda. I walked to the front door and opened it. It looked like she had cut holes in the top and sides of the bag and had a string holding it in the middle. She crawled on her hands and knees past the same crowd she had passed when returning from her night with that idiot. Then the insults started. Cheater, and the other women in line started insulting her too. It was mass hysteria. Wrecker, woman of easy virtue. Someone threw ice cream at her and it got stuck in her hair. The sign around his neck must have tipped off the crowd, as it read, I beg your pardon. I was mistaken. Woman of easy virtue. Everyone took out their phones. But she continued to crawl on her hands and knees until she reached me and then bowed before me. I extended my hand to help her get up and led her into the house. The cameras were still filming. I walked up to the line and shouted, if I see this on the internet, I'll come after you. Show some decency. Haven't we suffered enough yet? I left. I recognized most of the women in the line, but there were one or two that I didn't know. I think it was them who started getting abusive. I don't think she lived here, but she seemed familiar to me. I was sure I had seen her somewhere before. The hair was different, she dressed differently, but I had definitely seen her before. I couldn't remember where. Doesn't matter, I had other problems at the moment. I helped Linda inside, sat her down in a chair, and brought her a hair towel and tea. I looked at her and said, just tell me why. I don't know, she said. I found myself in a moment. A handsome, famous young man chose me out of all the beautiful women. He chose me, and I knew that you would forgive me. You lifted me up all night. I couldn't make a mistake. She looked down at her hands. But I was so wrong, you didn't forgive me, and when you screamed at me in John's office, I completely understood it. The shame and pain I caused you. You couldn't even defend yourself. And to come home like this, I wish I had even noticed the ice cream truck. She raised her head and looked at me. I'm sorry about the kiss on the cheek. He wanted to kiss me on the lips, but I didn't allow it. I turned my head at the last second. She lowered her eyes to her knees again and whispered, just like I didn't let him sleep with me this morning, I wouldn't want to bring you what's left. Her body was shaking with sobs. If you want a divorce, I won't resist, but we will have to share custody of the children. But I want to take revenge on him. I have to take most of the blame. I should have been stronger. I shouldn't have let him seduce me. But John told me some of his stories, and it's a game for him. Seducing married women in front of their husbands, and then not giving them a chance to assert their rights. It wasn't me who he wanted, it was a power game for him, and you were his target. I was just a pawn in his game. I'm not that beautiful after all. She looked at me. I want to hurt him for what he did to our family. She said this while gritting her teeth. I thought to myself, how come the consultant knows his story? She continued, it was empty. Then I realized that I had done, well, not everything until you swore in John's office. I'm sorry, honey. Then why didn't you just come home? I pointed this out to her. I was ashamed of what I did. I didn't know how to look you in the eyes. And I didn't know where I was. I was so enamored with being with him that I didn't see where we were going, and I didn't have any money. You had a phone. You could have called me. I didn't know where you were, and I didn't know if you would come for me after what I did. She seemed to have no more words. She just sat and sobbed. I think that was the moment I gave up after seeing the humiliation she went through. and she realized the full impact of what she had done to our lives and seemed absolutely remorseful for her actions. I extended my hand to her. "Come on, I'll help you shower, and then I'll pick up the children. They stay at your parents' place overnight." She took my hand, and I led her upstairs to the shower. That night we touched. In fact, I held her all night. I think she was sleeping, but every now and then she would start and sob. Forgiveness began to come. I didn't sleep much. Thinking about what she did earlier, it couldn't have been a spontaneous act. It would take some planning to orchestrate such humiliation. The next morning, the house was a completely different place. I checked social media. These were her pages, not mine. I deleted mine a couple of weeks ago for some reason. There were no posts. It is clear that several were deleted. We didn't talk much, almost like we didn't know what to say. We went about our business. She cleaned the toilet, washed clothes. She made a couple of cups of tea, but kept walking past me, touching me. It seemed like she wanted to make sure I was still here. I didn't reject her touch like I used to. I've been working on cars that have been abandoned for the last couple of weeks. I get dirty and went upstairs to shower. She was making the bed when I left. She touched me. I don't know how it came to my mind, but I said, "We can't." She looked at me with bewilderment. Her light bulb came on. She jumped out of bed and ran downstairs. I heard a clattering down the stairs, like a fairy tale elephant, and then back up, probably 2 steps at a time. She had a piece of paper in her hands. "I'm clean. I got tested on Monday." She looked down. I didn't trust him. I grabbed her hand and pulled her back onto the bed. We made love. After that, I think we both slept well for a couple of hours over the past few weeks. I was rudely awakened by the doorbell ringing. All I heard was, "Oh my gosh, kids." With these words, she grabbed a robe, it seemed to be mine, and ran downstairs. I looked at the clock on the bedside table. It was already 5 o'clock. I assumed that it was my parents who returned the children. I thought I'd better go say hello, so I grabbed the second robe and went downstairs. I wasn't really thinking, but seeing my mother's mouth wide open and my father standing there with a big smile, I think they put 2 and 2 together and realized what was going on. The mother began to cry. I sheepishly asked them if they wanted tea. Fortunately, they refused. They told us that the children were fed and organized and kept them occupied all day. The house wasn't all sweetness and sunshine. I still had fits of anger, but they didn't last long, and I managed to control them. She still touched me every time she passed by. Things got better, and it became known that I was no longer banned from the pub. I still haven't returned. People at work commented on how much happier I was. Before this, I must have been a real grumpy bastard. This time, I was almost looking forward to seeing Dr. John. It was interesting, and I learned a little more about what Linda was thinking now. She mentioned it after the ice cream truck incident. As we entered Dr. John's office, I suddenly recognized the secretary. I was pretty sure she was the one who started shouting insults at Linda at the ice cream truck. Maybe she was the one who threw the ice cream, but I couldn't be sure. It stood out because she was one of the few who didn't have a camera. We didn't wait long before Dr. John called us into his office. He saw the difference and had a big smile on his face. For the first time, we actually sat next to each other. He started a conversation. "I think something has happened since we last saw each other. Do you want to talk about it? Linda, do you want to go first?" I realized that he could have gotten the whole story from his administrator. "Can you tell me and Jim why you did it?" She stood up, looked at me with that determined face I hadn't seen in weeks, and said, "I can't take away your humiliation. I can't take away what I did to you when I came home that Sunday afternoon. However, I could join you in your humiliation. That's what I decided to do." She lost her composure a little. "And to show you how sorry I am." It was as bad as I thought. I wanted to get up and run, but I forced myself to crawl past those people who saw me that Sunday. I was not humiliated that day, but the humiliation began there for you. Dr. John looked at me. "What do you think about this, Jim? This should probably make you feel better. It wasn't fair, 2 questions in one, and the second one was leading." I had to think about these questions. I'm not quite sure how I feel about it, but it was a brave move, that's for sure. It shows how sorry she is if she went through this. However, I was still confused. Dr. John told me, "You managed to stop people from talking about the incident on social media. Why did you do this? I know what shame and trouble it caused me. She probably couldn't have prevented what happened to me, but I could for her sake. I didn't want her to go through the crap I did." I paused. Who came up with this idea? Dr. John responded, "This arose as a result of our discussion of the humiliation you experienced, and then Linda wanted to make it smaller. We realized that this was impossible. So she came up with the idea of stooping to your level to endure the same humiliation as you. She didn't tell me what she planned to do, but I know she hired my secretary to help her. This confirmed my thoughts. She was the one I saw in line for ice cream. She made herself look different by changing her hairstyle." Dr. John continued, "After you left, you didn't see how all the women attacked the one who threw the ice cream. It seems that it was too far. And your comment, 'Haven't we suffered enough?' may have hit the mark." I made it a point to have short sessions with Dr. John throughout the week. If something bothered me, sometimes it would just be a telephone call. Sometimes he called me himself. It seemed strange to me that he always had time for me. It helped me control my anger, well, almost always. "Jim, I asked Linda if I could share this. She seemed to agree. I know Linda wants revenge, not just against Vale, but also to Edward, David, and their wives after what they did. She didn't understand what they did until you spoke up at your first meeting with me." Linda squeezed my hand. "My father was right. You would have stood up for me. And I can't be sure, but if you appeared in front of me, I might change my mind." She cried again, "But we'll never know. You never had a chance because they stopped you." Dr. John continued, "I suspect you have already started to take revenge on them. As your consultant, I must ask, please don't do anything else that could land you in jail. This won't help Linda at all." I smiled at him and said, "I'll be careful." She told me that she wanted revenge on Vale, but she didn't say anything about the others. I already had a plan and was collecting the necessary things, discreetly, to complete it. On Monday evening, Stephen and Denise came to our house. Stephen was very apologetic that he had not supported me enough in recent weeks, and that they should have done more that night. Denise was in the kitchen with Linda, making coffee, but they were there much longer than it took to boil the kettle. He told me that they had quarreled with the other four. In fact, they hadn't spoken since and weren't expected to any time soon. "Look, I know you love to play golf, but you haven't played since this started. How about I play with you early in the morning before most people get there? I'm not a good player, but I can keep you company." "Thanks, buddy, but why?" "Because I'm ashamed. Maybe I could have helped you if I realized what Dave and Dee were doing sooner." I accepted his offer, even though I knew we would spend most of the time looking for his golf balls. It's better to take a lot of spare ones. Stephen and I weren't the best of friends in the group, but he'd always been a decent guy, and now he was proving it. We arrived at the golf club early, and as he promised, Stephen kept up with me. We only played 9 holes, but it was enjoyable. It wasn't my best game, but I enjoyed it. As I was walking, I thought, this is a good friend. He exposed himself to fire, just so I can get out. Back at the clubhouse, he mentioned that there was a dance on Saturday night and asked if Linda and I would like to go along. I was a member of the club. I didn't need a special invitation. I told him I wasn't sure if I wanted to be ridiculed again. Even though Linda and I were working things out, it was too soon. He tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Whenever you're ready, buddy." But then he told me that he had spoken to the committee, and the general feeling among the club members was that anyone who said anything derogatory about me would be considered behavior unbecoming of a member of the golf club, and his membership would be reconsidered. There was a waiting list to join the club, so everyone knew what it meant. I felt that after the initial surge of humiliation, there was now a wave of pity that was almost as bad. On the way home, I realized that my revenge plan would be easier to carry out if I was at the club. I would have to think about it. When I arrived home, it was obvious that Denise was talking to Linda about dancing. Linda was determined because she wanted to publicly demonstrate her affection for me, and the golf club was a safe place to do so. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be seen forgiving her. Would that make me a weakling? I'd have to talk to Dr. John about it. Dave, Edward, and their wives will most likely be there. I thought for the rest of the day, and the seed of the plan I had was fully ripened. But I'll need another round of golf early in the morning. I talked to Dr. John about it, and he indicated that this was what was eventually going to happen, and the golf club would probably be a safe place for our first outing. I called Stephen and asked for another round of early morning golf. At the same time, I heard Linda in the other room on the phone with Denise, telling her that she had convinced me to go to the dance. I let Stephen know that I had been persuaded. When we played, I felt that this could be a betrayal, but I thought that if I asked him, he might have helped me anyway. I just didn't want to get him into trouble if something went wrong with my plan. While walking, he told me that Linda had told Denise about some of our problems and what I had been through, like the fact that I was fired from my job and banned from the pub, and my alibi 247 and 365. He apologized again for not being there for me. After the round, I offered Stephen coffee as a modest reward for his company. I've already decided that he won't pay for drinks today. I excused myself and went to the toilet. After making sure I had a screwdriver in my pocket, I didn't forget my need for a 24-hour alibi. There were no cameras in the hallway to the toilets, and although there was a fire exit at the far end, they would know if someone came out through it because it was alarmed. We picked up Stephen and Denise on the way, and as expected, Dave, Dee, Edward, and Jane were there too. I looked around and saw their cars, Dee in an X5. Probably their Merc hasn't been returned yet. Edward's Range Rover over Finch was there, not new, but very nice, his pride and joy. Unfortunately, they were not parked together. In fact, there was a space next to Overfinch that Linda used. The evening went well. I kept my word and Stephen didn't pay for the drinks. I insisted, but watched how much I drank. Then I saw my chance. The security guard had just returned from one of his rounds around the parking lot. I excused myself and went into the small room. He ran out the fire exit like a rat through a chimney. I grabbed the bag that I had hidden behind the fire exit earlier, put on my gloves, and took out the first gas burner from it and lit it, pointing it under the X5 to the fiber tray where I thought the fuel tank was. I didn't know how long it would take, and since it was a diesel, I didn't know how quickly it would catch fire. Then there was the Overfinch, which was closer to the fire exit, and it ran on petrol, which burns better than diesel, I'm sure. I pointed the lit gas burner under the Overfinch tank and then ran back through the fire exit, slamming it behind me. It's good that I trained. I wasn't out of breath when I came back and sat down at the table. About 2 minutes after I returned to the table, there was a loud diva. People ran outside, some through the front door, others through the fire exit. Linda looked at me. We followed the crowd through the fire exit. I was the last one positioned and only had a few seconds to reconnect the fire door sensor, which is when the alarm went off. I don't think anyone noticed. They were more interested in the burning over Finch. Unfortunately, one of the cars parked nearby was also slightly burned. I looked around, and with the extra lighting in the parking lot, the small flame under the X5 was not visible. Unless I knew where to look, I knew. And suddenly it flashed brighter, but still focused on Overfinch. By the time they noticed, it was too late and the X5 was completely engulfed in flames. People managed to drive their cars away from the burning X5. People saw whose cars were on fire, and a lot of glances were thrown in my direction. I just smiled. The crowd split, and a very angry Edward rushed towards me, shouting, "You did it, you bastard!" He and Stephen attacked me, but I fought them back. It was time to return to the club. We could hear emergency sirens in the distance. I decided I needed to sit down and have a beer. It's going to be a long night. Linda never strayed far from me. She held my hand as we walked back through the front door. She whispered to me with a smile, Are you satisfied now? I replied, and you? Oh, yes. Then she kissed me. The police interviewed everyone. Strange, but I was the last to be interrogated. But I could describe every minute until I went to the toilet, and as Stephen pointed out, I didn't have time to go around and light the fire. I would have been seen on CCTV and security would have seen me leaving through the front door, and the fire exit was alarmed, and no one heard it go off until everyone went to check on the fire. There were discussions about the attack on David and Edward, but it was ruled self-defense after CCTV footage was reviewed. The policeman said that David and Edward might be charged with something. He will have to discuss this with his superiors. Oh, okay. It probably helped that our car was parked next to Overfinch. Okay, it wasn't our best car, it was Linda's school bus. And if he required replacement, so be it. Stephen and Denise offered to take a taxi home. We didn't get home until early morning. The sun was already rising. Things were returning to normal. Linda continued to walk past me, touching me. Unfortunately, I still experienced outbursts of anger. On one of our trips to see Dr. John, he made what I thought was a ridiculous proposal. We had to go back to where it all started, have a good night and exercise our demons, leave everything behind, especially me. Going back to Red Hat on Saturday night for the dance, I wasn't sure. Now I like Red Heart. They sell good beer. At Christmas, there is a roaring fire and the best bacon and brie sandwiches you can find in town. It's a small thing, I know, but I would feel sorry for the place. But yes, it can exorcise demons. But I told him I was worried about that idiot showing up again. Dr. John assured me that if he showed up, he wouldn't be interested in Linda. He's been with her once, and he never goes back to the same woman twice. He studied this man, he confessed, I think Linda and I realized it ourselves. Linda agreed that we should continue to show people that we are together, and if he is there, she will have fun ignoring him. I admit I was scared. She did it once. Will she do it again? At that moment, I made a decision. Yes, we will go, and if she leaves with him again, it will be the end. There will be no coming back a second time, and I will take everything back one way or another. If she came home with me, Dr. John was right. It would give me closure. But let's see in the morning. Dr. John also assured me that there would be people, including himself, keeping an eye on me in case anyone wanted to do anything. It made me feel a little better, a little. I felt like Linda and Dr. John were talking to me. It felt like a trap, and I had no one to talk to. It was a bit of a risk, and I wasn't sure if I could trust what he was saying. I called Albert. I told him about my concerns, also that I might not believe what he would say because I was confused. He just laughed it off and suggested we call Dilbert because that was his specialty. I thought about it, so I decided to keep an open mind. I realized I had nothing to lose, so I called Dilbert. I think Albert warned him because he immediately began, Jim, I understand why you might be worried, but we think John Campbell wants you to calm down and stop looking back. Don't worry, there will be people there to make sure you won't be disturbed. He laughed a little, which was annoying until he said, I think you've sorted out your old friends. I don't think they will show up. We were getting ready. I admit I was nervous. She looked gorgeous, this time in a purple dress that showed off her cleavage, and she let the girls go free. The dress was cut to the thigh, and if you looked quickly, you could see that she was wearing stockings. I just hoped it was all for me. She saw that I was nervous about this. Darling, please don't worry. This is my chance to prove to you that I'm yours. She looked amazing that Friday night in the red dress. She looked even better now, and what bothered me the most was that she didn't seem nervous. She was looking forward to this. I think it made me even more nervous. I started to calm down after we ate. After dinner, we headed to the ballroom. We danced a couple of times. She smiled at me and held on to me. The time was getting closer to the time when we had to go to our room. I grabbed a beer on the way. I only had 2 glasses of wine before, just in case, you know. And then, like last time, just as we were about to leave, he entered. He looked around, saw us, and headed straight towards us. He had a smirk on his face. I'll take your woman again. So much for Dr. Campbell's assessment. I felt for a second that this was just another setup, but then he was in front of me and I had to do something. Get out of the way, cuckold. I want to dance with your woman. Linda was next to me. Let's leave, dear. He's not worth it. He's not so great in bed either. He just shows himself well, like on the field. It's all show and there's no substance. Now I knew whose side she was on. And who will she go home with or to the hospital if I'm wrong? I could see how angry this made him. Linda, sit down. This is a man's job. We were so close that I could feel his breath. From the corner of my eye, I saw people taking out their phones. I felt a hand on my right shoulder and heard the words, "Come on, buddy." I looked the idiot in the eye. If you want her, you'll have to go through me. But you are too cowardly, so just leave. I saw the rage in his eyes. He attacked me. By this time, the guards were already rushing here. One of them was on the phone. All this took less than a minute. I sat down. The security guard told me to stay put. I had no reason to move. My job was done. If I wanted to leave, he wouldn't have stopped me. Stephen brought me a beer. Denise appeared next to Linda. I looked at them both and asked, why? Denise reached across the table and grabbed mine. Sherry, the former mayor's ex-wife, and I went to school together. As if that explained everything, it probably did. They called the police and an ambulance. It didn't take long for the police to arrive. A couple of young police officers arrived. They looked at Vale. There was a conversation between them and the guards. The policeman came up to me and said, "I'm arresting you for assault, grievous bodily harm." That was all he had time to say before another man approached them from the side, showing something in his hand. He pointed to Vale laying on the floor and said, "No, you're going to arrest that man on the floor for assault, grievous bodily harm, affray, whatever." He attacked this man without provocation, and he was only defending himself. The policeman looked at the man and said, "Yes, sir." The man continued, "And you will collect video footage from the club and video from that guy in the corner with a real camera, not a smartphone," pointing to the man in the corner. That man looked at me and smiled. I recognized his voice. I looked around the room, and there was our consultant with his secretary. Now they were sitting next to each other. I was sure they were brother and sister. He nodded his head and walked to a quiet corner of the bar. I looked at the man with the camera and recognized the man next to him as a deputy from a neighboring county. While one of the doctors examined Vale on the floor, the other looked at me and said that my injuries were superficial. A man appeared with a smartphone. "I'm from the Journal. Would you like to comment on what happened?" What was the local newspaper doing here? I thought to myself. She muttered something like, "No comment." He said, "Sorry, I didn't quite hear. Could you repeat it?" She looked at the reporter and said, "That person lying on the floor is not worth commenting on. He is all a bluff, and there is nothing behind him. He's a coward. His performances are the same as his performances on the field. Flashes of inspiration between lots of running around trying to look good. And you can quote me on this." The consultant beckoned us to the corner where he was sitting with a woman. Now I recognized her as the one who started the abuse when Linda was going through her path of humiliation, and his secretary. The consultant introduced us. "Let me introduce my sister, Sophie." This confirmed my suspicions. "So, I'm guessing this is all staged," I said, waving my hand around. "Yes, I'm afraid that's mostly true. Let me explain. When I found out what happened from your lawyer, who is a friend of the judge whose wife cheated with Vale, I contacted Linda and offered to help your marriage. I'm not actually a marriage counselor, but I am a psychiatrist. I hope you don't mind. We didn't expect Vale to be here tonight. The team was playing away, so he shouldn't have been here, but something happened. Sorry." He continued to explain. "Vale ruined many lives, and they couldn't find a way to stop him until we intervened. But it didn't go according to plan. There was no intended physical confrontation. Dr. John leaned forward and looked at both of us and said that their priority was to help us get back together if possible and to show people that Vale didn't matter and people could rebuild their lives. They wanted to show it Waludo showed people that he doesn't mean anything. It all seemed a little far-fetched to me, a little far from the truth. My investigations were correct. There was a judge, an MP, and a senior police officer who, if they took action, it would appear to be an abuse of power. So I was right, it was staged. Then Sophie chimed in. Yes, but Linda didn't know anything about it. I had to do my part because I know the pain. My husband left when I had one night with Vale. I don't know where he is. He just walked away and left me. I'm desperate to find him, but in the meantime, I'm willing to do anything to help the victims. Vale and overthrow him. She cried. Through tears, she told us, he chose wives, powerful people, so they couldn't take revenge on him because it would look like an abuse of power. He felt safe. He didn't even choose particularly beautiful ones. There are rumors that he began a relationship with the wife of a certain minor royal personage who was not particularly attractive, rather plump. She believed that Vale was interested in her and left her husband for him. He ignored her, and she ended up in a mental hospital after caused self-harm. The family was able to hide it, mostly. She couldn't continue. Dr. Buddy John continued his explanation. He enjoyed cuckolding people who couldn't respond, or they would be accused of abuse of power. The first was the mayor's wife. He resigned shortly after it happened, which was a shame. He was a good man. As soon as he resigned, he divorced her and moved away. Then a deputy from a neighboring district, and Sophie. She looked down at her lap, crying. He continued, Sophie's husband was the editor of the local newspaper, and local newspapers cannot do what large multinational companies do. They must cater to local audiences, and he could not publish anything that would slander a local hero, and if he did, it would add to his own humiliation. Either way, when Sophie returned home from her night out, Adrian was gone. He just left, and she still doesn't know where he is, although she tries very hard to find him. She hopes now that we have the story, people will read it. She can get her message across to Adrian. He'll realize what a mistake she made and maybe come home or at least get in touch so we know he's okay. Why do you think he chose Linda? I asked. I'm not sure, but we all think he was tired of playing psychological games and wanted to try something physical. So he saw you. You are a strong, healthy man, and Linda was beautiful, so he chose you. But he still didn't take any risks because he had his teammates. You were just in the right place at the wrong time. Did you arrange this tonight? I asked. Well, in a way, yeah, like we said, Vale shouldn't have been here tonight. We wanted a lot of people to see you too enjoying yourself. I was going to explain this at our next meeting on Wednesday and ask for permission to start featuring you on social media. We didn't warn you because we wanted you to behave naturally and not put on a show if you knew about our plans. I hope you don't mind. I could get seriously hurt by it, so yeah, I guess I mind. In fact, there were two people ready to intervene. If he had swung for a third strike, he would have been knocked out. In fact, he should not have had time to strike the first blow, but they could not get through the crowd. He admitted that Vale had taken them by surprise. He usually waited until mid-evening before approaching someone, and he never approached the same woman twice. But as soon as he saw Linda and me, he immediately headed towards us, which shocked them. He apologized. It was getting late, and I needed to think about it all. I looked at Linda. She looked tired but happy. Looking at her, I felt her love. And I think Dr. T's John was right about beating that idiot. But let's see in the morning. We said goodbye and, holding each other, crossed the dance floor and headed to our room. Stephen and Denise were there. He asked me if I wanted to play golf early in the morning with a big smile on his face. I smiled back at him and said, "Sorry, buddy, but I think I'll be busy early in the morning." And I squeezed Linda. We didn't make love that night. We just cuddled. In the morning, it was different. We almost missed breakfast. There is a large frame hanging on the wall next to the kitchen door. Inside is a piece of a bag with the inscription, Sutton's Seed Potatoes. Linda said she put it there as a reminder that every time she looked at it, she felt a little humiliated. A year after the ice cream van incident, I took it down. That was enough. Strangely, the trial did not take very long. Forces about which I had very limited knowledge and over which I had no control, intervened. I was called first and asked to talk about that night and the events that led up to it. I told them almost everything from the moment we walked into Red Heart and to arrest Vale that last evening. Sometimes I was a little vague. It took more than an hour. They showed a video. It started with Vale walking across the dance floor towards us. He seemed to be heading straight towards Linda and me. I thought it had been caught on video earlier, almost as if someone was expecting it. The video was professionally filmed. Linda was called in next and was asked to confirm what I had said. She sat during the interrogation and agreed with everything I said. She cried when she finished. Stephen and Denise were called in turn and agreed with what was said about the attack. The next people called confused me, but it wasn't difficult at this stage. They were not directly related to the case. The former mayor, his ex-wife, Sophie, and a few others I didn't recognize. Advocate Vale constantly objected, but was overruled in most cases. The case was decided. He was guilty. The video proved it. The lawyer's job was to reduce his sentence as much as possible. A number of character witnesses were called, but the team's leadership was absent. The prosecutor noted this. Representatives from charities he supported, but some were noticeably absent. Things were going well until a psychiatrist was called in, who explained that he was not to blame for trying to seduce married women. His star status had gone to his head, and he was not prepared for it. It was the FA's fault for not teaching him how to cope with stardom, and we should feel sorry for him. However, my lawyer pointed out details of courses available on the subject run by the Football Association, which Vale signed up for but did not attend. Vale exploded, screaming and shouting, and the court session was interrupted. When it resumed, contempt of court was added to the charges. Sophie's behavior changed in the middle of her testimony. I followed her gaze. Her husband was sitting there. I recognized him from the photo on her desk in John's office. Marcos Vale received the maximum sentence in prison for grievous bodily harm, fighting, resisting arrest, and contempt of court. 8 years because he abused his star status. He'll probably be out in 5 years, unless his arrogance gets the better of him again, in which case he'll serve the full 8 years. His football career is over. His lawyer immediately said he would appeal the verdict. The judge leaned forward and said, "Is it your client's right if you think it's reasonable?" His tone made it clear that she would be wasting the client's time and money, so she'll probably do it since he got the maximum sentence. It won't get any worse, and she will get paid. I didn't know about resisting arrest. It turns out that when he went outside, he started screaming at the police. "Do you know who I am?" and started pushing them. There are rumors that batons were used and medics were called. There were also rumors that the deputy commissioner of police and the judge studied at the same university, albeit at different times. As we were leaving the court, a man whom I had not seen before approached me and extended his hand. He smiled, and for some reason I shook his hand. "Do you still have your phone?" "Yes." "Keep it charged but not on. We'll contact you if we need your help again. Your name is now Egbert, by the way." He smiled at me. "Good job and thank you. Thank you very much. You made a lot of people happy." After the trial, the local newspaper published the story Vale, a full expose of his and his teammates' antics, without mentioning the names of the victims, although some gave permission for their names to be used when the story was picked up by the national press. Our football team didn't get promoted. In fact, they almost got relegated. When Adrian found out how Sophie was involved in the Fall Vale, he contacted her. They are trying to make things work, and it looks like they will succeed. I don't know if the Football Association runs courses on star status management, but a quick Google search showed that such courses are available. Yes, I took some liberties with the English legal system. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.